In today's sewing snack video, let's talk fabric, both purchasing fabric and prepping fabric. And when you bring that fabric home, what are you going to do to get it ready for your project and ensure the most success? When purchasing fabric off of a bolt, you'll notice that that piece of fabric is folded in half so that you've got a folded edge, and then you have these two ends that come together, and these are woven and finished off to prevent fraying. This woven edge, both of these woven edges, are called selvages. You are purchasing a length of fabric. The width is already set, and that is the width the fabric happens to be on that bolt or on that roll, and a common width is 42 inches, but it can really vary, especially with decorator fabrics. You can get fabric that is 54 inches wide in that case. So be mindful that that is the width, the fixed amount, and the amount you're actually purchasing is the length. If you are purchasing fat quarters, that is a special measurement. Instead of the entire 42-inch width, a fat quarter is twice the length as a normal quarter yard, and it's half the width of that normal quarter yard. So you only have one selvage edge on your fat quarter, and it's called fat because it's a quarter yard that is in the fat dimension. And usually that's going to be about 19 inches by 21, 22 inches. And always, when you purchase fabric, purchase enough extra to account for shrinkage, which can happen when washing. When you're home with your fabric, one of the first things you'll want to do before using that fabric for your project is to pre-wash. It depends on your textile, but with quilt cotton, I like to put a couple tablespoons of vinegar in that wash cycle. That will help set the colors, and it will also remove any sizing that might interfere with the adhesion of interfacing. After washing, I also put it through the dryer on low heat. An exception to pre-washing would be for fabrics that say dry clean only. For instance, decorator fabrics that are used in upholstery or window treatments often have a Scotchgard application applied to those. And in that case, you may choose not to pre-wash the fabric. After laundering the fabric, I like to snip off these little strings, the frayed edges, and then I take it to my ironing board and press the entire piece before doing any cutting. It's often tricky to get a really straight cut, even if you line things up and measure things perfectly, because while cutting, it's easy for that ruler to slip, and then you end up with a crooked cut, which could ruin your whole project. There are a couple of tips that will help, and one is to get little silicone grips and attach them to the underside of your ruler. And the other is technique related and probably the most important, and that is when cutting, press firmly down and be mindful, intentional about pressing down rather than pressing in towards the ruler. When you're pressing in towards the ruler, that is what makes it slide out of the way. I also recommend, if you're going to be doing a lot of sewing and cutting, to get an ergonomic rotary cutter. This particular rotary cutter doesn't stress out my wrist, and it makes it easier for me to have a really good result. The way that fabric is rolled onto the bolt, there's stretching and skewing, and so it's really important once you've got your fabric laundered and pressed that you square it up in preparation for your project. To square it, you're going to want to bring these selvage edges together, and you may find that they don't line up perfectly side to side. You may need to shake it and see how it's supposed to line up. Ideally, you're going to want to have your fabric lay smoothly, like you see here. You don't want any puckers or bulges down there. And as you see, in order to make that lie smoothly, I've got a lot of excess fabric on either side. This is why the fabric needs to be squared up. So I'm going to put this fold here against the straight line of my cutting mat, and I'm going to use a ruler to square off both sides, making sure that I've got that ruler past this mark here. I can use this guide to see where I want to put my straight edge. And then I'm going to square off this end with a selvage, basically just cut the selvage off because that's already squared. And sometimes I'll throw down some pattern weights or even lay an additional ruler down just to hold that fabric nice and straight so it doesn't budge while I am cutting. Okay, and now I have a nice straight squared off piece of fabric ready for my project. And that's it. Following these simple steps to prepare your fabric and then square it off before using it in your pattern will help you have a successful result. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments below. I'd also love to hear any tips or suggestions you have for preparing your project. If you like this content and find it helpful, please like and subscribe. And as always, until next time, happy sewing.